Hello.
Hello. All right. Episode 17. This is all one, but it's 22 pages of it. And it is entitled To Keep You Honest. Okay, let me get
Situated.
all right. Oh, hey, Annie, what's up? You ask as Annie walks into your workspace off the atrium. She seems a little unsettled and plops herself down in one of your comfy lounge seats before she asks, Can I interrupt whatever it is you're doing? You smile and counter her question with your own. Would it matter if I said no? She shows a brief smile and then it's gone. Not really. You got me into this, and now I'm wondering what I'm doing, what we're doing. You give her your concerned look and respond, You know what we're doing. I've explained it. And I know Valora has overly explained it to you. So what's the confusion? She sighs and elaborates. Yeah, I get all that. But what are we doing? What are we doing now? Valora has me staring at my navel, and I feel like I'm sitting on the bench. Why aren't we doing anything to get the ball moving on this grand vision we're all supposed to be moving to? Gaining some insight into her unsettledness, you give her your thoughts. Feeling a little stir crazy, want to get out there and move some pieces around. You're thinking all this sitting around is a waste of time. She nods, so you continue. Annie, you're thinking old school of cause and effect, where we have to apply force to get anything done. Valore's navel staring, as you call it, is to get you expand your thinking to realize we make the changes inside ourselves first, and the external things will follow. She frowns slightly and lays out her confusion. Okay, I get the concept, but wouldn't it be easier to go move some pieces around to get things moving? You consider her sticking point and share your guidance. There are times when physically doing something is worth the experience, but the results are still a matter of your intent and reflect what has been accomplished inside you first. Remember, the crystal that just appeared in your hand? She nods and you continue. Did I do any work to make that happen? No, she replies. Okay, so how did it occur? Confused, she answers with, I still don't know. You nod and continue. I pictured it with my imagination and then I put my intent behind it. Her eyes lit up as she says, Then why don't you do that with everything else? You now shake your head and counter. And skip all the experiencing and growth for all of us? These abilities come with certain realizations. One is we are here to live and experience a believable and engaging storyline. How many times have you dreaded something before doing it, only to find it worthwhile experience afterward? If you had the ability to skip all of the experiences like that, would you? With your current level of expansion, you probably would. But with further expansion and responsibility that comes into your awareness, as your abilities come online, you start to slow down and consider the possibilities. It also opens your awareness to all the things that are going on around you, even when they don't appear to be. Your approach now to things is you're ready to do something, so you go do it, even if the other people are involved are not ready. But you could try to sense their readiness and send out your intent to get things prepared. She holds up a hand to stop you and says, Yeah, but I don't have those abilities yet. You roll your head to your right and quip. That's what the navel staring is for. You didn't think Valor had you doing it for fun, did you? No one can give you your expansion, nor your abilities. You have to go inside to find them and bring them out. And that's hard to do if you're filling all your time staying busy and doing other things. She frowns again and challenges you with, So we sit around waiting and doing nothing. You do your best not to frown back and tell her, This is one of those things you dread, but will appreciate appreciate it down the road. What you're in the process of doing is quieting your old ways of intending by physically doing everything to a new approach of pulling things together through your imagination so that you can then go physically experience what you intend. You're moving from going to get things you want to willing them to you. Most of this waiting and doing nothing time is getting you ready for the experience, despite you thinking you're ready. A lot of us still believe effort is what gets things done, but that is just leftover thinking of cause and effect. We don't get something done by physically doing it. That's your mind's current interpretation of applying your intent. Think of it like a ritual. You believe you have to perform 5 physical steps to complete a task. You do those steps and get it done. So your mind says that's the only way to do it. But that's just one way, and the one you default to in cause and effect thinking. But then someone else comes along and gets the same results or better by only doing 1 or 2 of the physical steps. That person expends less physical energy in doing it and seems to enjoy it just as much or more. What that person did was create a new ritual with fewer physical steps so that they could enjoy the task by efforting less. Neither method is more right, just different experience of the same task. One of the things your navel watching time could be used for is reevaluating your rituals for alternate experiences. You stop and look at her, and then bloop to a spot on the other side of the room, 20 feet away. She's caught gaping, so you continue. I could have walked across the room, but I chose not to because I knew I had another option. You then walk back to where you were sitting near Annie and continue further. That time, I decided to walk. Neither choice is right or wrong, or the only way to do it, but each offers a different experience. Why relegate myself to just one? Because that's the way I've always done it. But to realize I had that other option, I had to slow down and go inside to change my perspective. Still off kilter, she asked, why does it feel like it's a million miles away from me, from getting it? Smiling, you answer, because you're still trying to reason it out. Her determination returning, she pleads, okay, what am I doing wrong? Valor's meditation just seems like a chore. Isn't there an easier way? You sense her frustration as you answer her plea. How often do you just sit and do nothing but think? You mean other than Valor's forced navel staring sessions? You nod, so she continues. Maybe once or twice a day. Why? And what do you think about? I don't know, stuff. You then press her. Stuff? Like what? She thinks for a moment and then answers, like what else I need to do that day, or things that didn't go the way I wanted them to, or I don't know, just stuff. You pause, more for her than you. Ever try to think about nothing, or just be an observer to what you're thinking about? Now you watch her think and then hear her say, I've tried not to think about anything, but that just feels like I'm putting out brush fires that keep springing up. You laugh and say, yeah, like whack-a-mole. She looks at you strangely and asks, like what? You know, that arcade game. Confusion still on her face, you say, never mind. Instead of trying not to think, focus on a nothing. Her confusion is still showing, she inquired, what do you mean, a nothing? Define something in your mind you've seen before, but that you've never seen before, but have an idea of it, like a blank white wall or a void space, similar to a black hole, and concentrate on that. When thoughts pop up, just stay focused on your nothing. As you get better at it, try to become an observer. Excuse me. Try to become an observer of what thoughts pop up, but stay focused on your nothing. You can see her considering it, and then she asks, what do you mean become an observer? You answer, We all have the ability to split our consciousness off from the thinking to create an observer. Let yourself think whatever it comes up with, but use the observer mode to watch the thinking that goes on. It may take a little getting used to, but we all have it. Still in thought, she says, huh, that sounds interesting. I'll give that a whirl. As her unsettledness eases, you add, as you progress with practice, you'll begin to quiet your thinking and aim at where you want. Eventually, you'll get clear messages from your guide. She perks up at this. Valor did mention that, but who is it? Happy to see the light return to her eyes, you elaborate. Everyone has a guide who speaks to them, if only they can quiet the mind enough to hear. Your guide is essentially the voice of your will. It'll provide you with insights and answer some of your most pressing questions if you open yourself to what it has to say. But it may not always make sense when you get it. She then questions you. What do you mean? Well, sometimes you'll get something that doesn't quite make sense until later when something happens. Then you'll recall that info and it'll just click. You mean like it's my own kind of fortune teller? You laugh at that and then continue. Maybe one day, if you can heed the signs. But getting started, it's more like an early clues to understanding. After a handful of those clues click in place, you'll really start to feel like you're truly being guided. It's an amazing feeling. You can see she's determined to get this as she responds, I want to meet my guide. And you're saying all I have to do is slow down so I can find it. Then what? How does it feel for you now? Does it tell you what to do? You consider her questions and answer. My guide is like a partner that I can pay attention to or ignore. If I ignore it, I feel as if I'm going it alone, trying to prove something that doesn't need proving, although my guide is still there offering its guidance. This is when I feel the most fractured and unsure of myself. But when I heed its guidance, things seem to go the way they should, and I no longer feel alone. Just about everything clicks into place, and it gives me confidence in all that I do, even or especially when unexpected things crop up. The way I look at it is my guide knows what I came here to do and experience, and it nudges me towards that all along the way. The closer I stick to those nudges, the more confidence and enjoyment I have. The further I wander from them, the more confusion and lack of confidence I feel. But it doesn't tell me specific things to do. It's more a feeling of being aligned with certain actions over others. And it's a matter of degrees. So not doing something has its own alignment versus doing it. What I look for is the strong nudges first and then pick from there the descending nudges that align with the higher nudges. It's not an exact science, more done by feel. But if I keep myself open to allowing my true intent to come in through my guide, it just feels right to me. When something doesn't feel right, I pause to see what it's telling me. And if I can't resolve it, I don't do it. I just let it go. I know there are infinite possibilities in every moment. And to think we're supposed to navigate them all blindfolded is now absurd to me. I lived the majority of my life not paying a lot of attention to my guide, and I saw where that got me. Comparing that to the last few years of my life with awareness of my guide and doing my best to heed its guidance, well, there is no comparison. I can't even imagine going back to the old way. Annie has been locked on your every word, and you feel her hope pour out. She looks up and speaks to the air. I want what he's having. You laugh at that and tell her, Annie, it's not out there. You then point at her and say, it's inside you, just waiting for you to find and align with it. If Valor's meditation sessions of navel watching are a chore, then take them as one method and change them into your own way to get inside. It's just offering He's just offering that because he's seen it work for many people. But that isn't the only way. Find your way and know why you're doing it, and then keep repeating it to yourself. The Lord will push back to see how determined you are. But if you stick with it and show you are expanding, he'll relent and applaud you for finding your way. In the meantime, take advantage of his advice, ask questions, push back, whatever you feel you need to progress. Because I don't want to be the only one you interrupt, you point out with a sarcastic smile. She returns one and says, ha ha, but you'll take it because you're a tool. Excuse me. Because you're a tool. You raise an eyebrow at her, but she continues before you can say anything. You're happy being useful. And if mama ain't happy using you, ain't nobody happy. As you two are enjoying the moment, a voice booms inside your head. Ah, I see you're making progress with the stubborn one. Would you mind if we join you? You shake your head and think, who's we? The voice booms back. An important guest, one of your new arrivals. You liven up at this and think, just give me a minute to let the Lady of Steel know. Annie, who's seen you raise your right hand before and knows its meaning, stops in mid-sentence to hear what it is that calls you to raise your hand now. You refocus on her and inform her, Valor and one of the new arrivals will be joining us in a moment. She responds with momentarily closing her eyes and then noticeably calms. You know it's her preparation for dealing with Valor since you helped her with it. At that moment, Valor and a rather tall, picturesque brunette woman bloop into existence not 5 feet away. You think to yourself, she's done that before, not even fazed by it. A sultry voice in your head answers back, yes, many times, Christos. I hope this is no intrusion. Valor interrupts verbally. Greetings, earthlings. We come in peace. And holds his right hand up in the Vulcan way. You roll your eyes and say, if only Mr. Spock had possessed your sense of humor, that show would have flopped. Who's our guest? Valor looks from you to Annie and in a bit of flourish says, Christos, and may I present a one of your kind, Kira. You snicker at Valor's presentation and raise your hand in greeting to Kira. Welcome, Kira. I hope Valor hasn't scared you too much. He tends to think of us humans as entertainment. Kira's smile is beautiful and not the least bit tentative before she says, it was a while before I stopped looking for a hidden camera. At that, Annie barks a laugh and then looks to Valor to see how he took the comment and her reaction. He seems unfazed, although you seem to sense his appreciation for the wit. Kira turns to Annie and somewhat formally says, hello, Anne. It is my pleasure to meet you. Annie smiles warmly and says, call me Annie. Everyone else does, except Mr. Spock here. Kira smiles back just as warmly and says, very well, Annie. That name suits you better. Annie pauses and then asks, how so? You chime in with, Kira is like us, Valor and me. She can read people. Annie looks to Kira, who nods, and then back to you, pauses again, and then asks, how do you know? You just met her. You give her a sheepish look and answer, we shared an internal dialogue just as they arrived. Annie huffs, oh, great. Another one who can read me like a book. I really need to go and get in touch with my guide. She gets up to go when you receive a thought from Valor saying, I have this. Then aloud, Valor speaks to Annie. Annie, will you please stay? Caught off guard by Valor's calling her Annie for the first time, She halts and looks to Valor. Valor states simply, I believe you may find this discussion interesting. Annie then looks to you, and you nod, asking her to stay. She sits back down and says, okay, but can we keep the conversation out where I can hear it? Valor pipes in, but then we won't be able to talk about you around your back. Annie huffs again and says, it's behind my back, Valor. You break in. Annie, he knows he's just messing with you. Annie turns to Valor, gives him the evil eye, and then turns and shares it with you. You then backpedal and say, in defense, what did I do? Annie tilts her head and reminds you, you got me into this. You throw your hands up, then turn to Valor and ask, please, can we get to why you're here before Miss Sparky here sends any more lightning bolts my way? Valor smiles and then begins. We came here so that I could introduce Kira and allow you to ask her any questions you may have. She also has some information to pass along about her group. Christos, what questions do you have for her? You look to Kira and ask, we're happy to have you and your group here, but it would help if we knew what your intentions were before we talk about anything else. What are your group's intentions? Kira, talking with poise and confidence, responds to your question. I believe our intentions align with the intentions of you and your people here. Our group broke away from the other people where we were because the other people were set on base living, while our group wanted to pursue expanded living. Once we achieved the means to leave, we were drawn here from the breadcrumbs you left. From what time we've had to look around here and in discussions with Valor and his people, we believe this is where we want to be. And we know we can aid the people here in expanding if you'll have us. You give a nod to Valor for his part and then return your focus to Kira before asking, I trust Valor, and I sense a truthful nature in you. So I have no hesitation in welcoming you and your group in. I have no authority over your group or anyone here, but you do have my nod of approval. What can I or we do for you? Visibly smiling, she boldly states, let us help and integrate into your society for its highest good. You nod and ask, what do you know of the Weavers and GCOS? Valor offers his input. Our people have explained both, but they needed little, as they were already on board with the concepts. They have over 100 ready to serve in any capacity at GCOS, and many more to serve throughout your society. Quite shocked, you ask for confirmation. Over 100? At GCOS alone? That will expedite our restructure. Valor senses the overwhelming nature of this info and chimes in. Our people are already revising its structure, subject to your council's review next week. In fact, all of the council members are being involved, and that leaves you to be the unbiased voice of reason for the review. You hold up your hand and state, why am I to be the voice of reason? Valor responds directly. Need I remind you of our talk about, okay, your point is made, counselor. Kira, I assume your group is all set for housing and provisions. She nods and you continue. Okay, have we set a date when they'll start at GCOS? You notice Kira give a sheepish look to Valor, who then fills you in his own way. Kira and her landing party have already beamed aboard and begun their mission. You sigh and say, why am I not surprised? So, why did you need me? Valor responds, voice of reason, and to give the final blessing, O Holy One. You steer daggers at him and say with firmness, that's not even a little bit funny, Valor. He smiles mischievously and says, it is to me. Plus, it keeps you honest. Not sure what he means by that. You ask him, honest about what? All he says is, you'll see. Not wanting to get into it with him in mixed company, you turn to Kira and ask, There was something else you wanted to tell me about your group. She brightens up and declares, we would like to have a celebration. You smile and nod and then say, absolutely. Your group arriving here is definitely worthy of a celebration. She pauses to take a breath and explains further. Yes, our arriving is a gift we wish to highlight, but it is our reason for being here and how we got here we want to celebrate. Confused, you ask her, I'm not sure I'm following. Did we go over that? She nods and says, oh, yes, I mentioned it briefly. Still unsure, but willing to go with it, you ask, well, okay, is there anything you need from us for the celebration? She nods again and proclaims, yes, you. You give her a big smile and announce, oh, we'll be there with all our party favors. Seeming unsatisfied with your answer, Kira looks to Valor for assistance. Annie, who has been quietly following the whole conversation, now chooses to play a part as she addresses you. No, Dingleberry, she means for her group to celebrate you. You're the reason and the how they got here. Totally taken by surprise. You stammer, what? Tell me you're joking. Did he, you point to Valor and continue, put you up to this? Kira looks unpleasantly surprised by your response, but finds her voice to confirm, I assure you, everyone in our group intends to celebrate what you did for us. None of us would be here if you hadn't had the foresight to leave us the path. Valor merely suggested we present our intention to you. With a straight face, you look over at Valor and say, oh, I'm sure he did, but he knew I would never put myself out there like that. Valor leans forward to address you. That is true, in all but one case, for the highest good of all. You give him your questioning look and ask, how is me putting myself out there to be worshiped for the highest good? He responds with confidence, you aren't putting yourself out there. They are. He indicates Kira with a tilt of his head and in her direction, and then continues, and this will be a good test of your weaving abilities. Annie inserts herself to ask, how is putting Christos out there to be worshipped a test of their weaving? I don't get it. Valor answers, he's not being put up on high to be worshipped. His actions to think beyond himself with foresight are to be celebrated. This is a society's way of spotlighting behavior that it wishes to reinforce within itself. Still doubtful, and Annie asks, okay, but isn't there a good chance this turns into some kind of hero worship? The Lord gives her a knowing glance and sheds some light. Yes, and that is where the weaving comes in. It will be up to all the weavers, but especially the new arrivals, to ensure your society sees this in the proper light. However, for your first major test, there is the possibility that some worshiping will occur. And who better to have that placed upon than Christos? Name one person who despises it more and would work harder than him to eradicate it. This is an excellent test of everyone's weaving capability and a great opportunity to pull your society closer together with the risk known up front and mitigated by who the target is. There is much to gain and very little to risk, provided all your weavers understand how this works towards the highest good of your society. He then turns to you with his mischievous look and pronounces, plus, it will keep you honest. You give him your knowing look and tell him, I knew something was up when you interrupted our conversation. The Lord turns to Annie. You needed to hear this discussion to understand what is going on and to better grasp your role. Annie asks, uh, what role? The Lord smiles again and says, to help keep him honest. Anyone can succumb to hero worship, although I would be quite surprised if Christos does. Your awareness of this concern will backstop his honesty. question his action, to draw out his thinking so he can see his own actions through your eyes, and learn by imagining yourself in his shoes. Employ Doug to assist, as you two are the ones he listens to the most. You speak up for yourself. I don't need any babysitters. The Lord counters, maybe not, but you can share in the learning and the experience. Kira reinserts herself into the discussion. And what is the role of my group? The Lord turns to address her. Your group will emphasize the what and the how of what brought you here, not the who. You'll still have to mention him. However, focus on getting people to imagine your society where that behavior is commonplace. His thinking and actions were extraordinary for that time and place, but they don't have to be here. They could become quite ubiquitous if you all weave this correctly. He turns back to you and suggests you might want to work this through GCOS as a real life exercise. Get all the members on the same page and then permeate it out through the Weaver network. It will be important for them to see that this does not alter you and who you are. And any changes to you and your society are for the better. You shake your head, and he raises an eyebrow in question. It's amazing how you manipulated me right into this. He gives you his best Spock stare and says, are you not a tool to be used? Right, Andy?
That was good.
Yeah, it got dark on me.
So now we have another character. Cool. And 100 more members to GCOS.
I have to keep track of all of them. My brain is full. Actually, it's over full.
It reminded me back to when you were talking in the last, I think it was the last episode, where it was like he said a century, and Christo said, that's a long time. I thought you were going to say a year or two, and he said time. You don't understand the elasticity of time,
Yep.
And then there's 100 of these members that came through. I'm thinking, yeah, interesting. Because you get this wave, it kind of compresses the time. And
he knew that this was coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was coming.
And he also knew that later half of that conversation was coming, because he already told him, said, you'll see, when he asked about him being honest.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that when I wrote it. I just wrote it.
Yeah.
I had no idea where I was going.
Yeah, it's
And then,
amazing.
then at the end, I was like, this is where he probably says to keep you on. I'm like, wait a minute. I had to flip back and go, I just wrote that.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's just fascinating. I was talking to him about it last night again. I'm like, just how it flows through him. I mean, he goes in there, writes it, he comes out and reads it. It's like, it's not even, there's not like a draft or redraft, an outline of anything.
Right. It's just, it just comes right through. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and the imagination, I mean, this situation or this GCOS and the whole organization, I mean, it's fathomable. It's like I can see myself sitting in it, and experiencing it. So it's not like far out there.
Yeah, I mean, in another episode, I explained the whole world. Remember, I laid all that out and whatnot. Somehow my imagination opened up and allowed me, because I want that. That's what I want. This manuscript is what I want. I want a world where everyone belongs. Everyone knows their place, but their place is not a specific thing. It's you. If you want something, you go get it. You don't want it, you don't do it. People don't give in to people trying to, put peer pressure. But most people are aware of that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of world I want to live in.
Yeah. And then as the expansion opens, you step into different roles and different levels.
You decide, what calls to you.
Yeah.
No one's going to come, every day and say, okay, wake up, come on, let's go to school. You take care of your own. You go after what you want. And you don't say, oh, I wanted that role.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nobody's going to grant it to you.
But you can you can create another one.
Mm-hmm.
It's
There's no scarcity of the
no.
roles. Cool.
Yeah.
I
So
like it.
yeah, it's awesome because I get to go in the room and it come through me, and I never know when I go to write what's going to come through. I have no idea, I have no plan, nothing. And then it starts coming, and I get that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get to come out and read sections of it to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then I get to go do some more. Then I get to come here and read it again,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll get to read it.
Yeah, and when you read it to me, you don't change anything. I mean, it's basically that's the final thing at that point when you read it to me, and then you're just adding to it every time you go back in there. You're adding more pages.
Well, you type it up.
Yeah,
you,
afterwards.
You
yeah.
type it up, and then you'll have a handful of things.
Very few. Yeah. Usually it's just me understanding it's not that thing that needs
Well,
to
I mean,
change.
this goes to show you that this is coming from somewhere kind of almost formed.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you take 99.99% of everyone, and there would be revisions and corrections and everything. And I'm not saying because I'm good at it. No, I'm saying it's coming through, and I'm holding the pencil.
Because you've never written before.
I've never written.
Technical manuals and stuff, but
nope.
Yeah.
You just became a clear channel so that you could flow the information from your higher self through. You know, you did all the work that you needed to do to become that clear channel.
Yeah, to clear it out.
I mean, that's the only explanation I can come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with it. But it's nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
It's every day.
Mm-hmm.
I go in there 2 hours, and then I'll come out for an hour or two. And then I go in there for 2 hours, and I do that every single day, 7 days a week. And I've been doing it since we started.
Since February.
This is now the 17th episode,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still going.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's not been a day.
Not one day that I haven't gone in there and at least gotten some things. Yeah, sometimes it slows down, and maybe in a day I might only get 2 or 3 pages.
But those are usually when you're working through something.
That's when I realize I'm actually stuck on this point, and I'm working through it virtually in my mind and going through it. And then when it breaks, boom, all of a sudden I'll do 4, 5, 6, 7 pages, and I'll come out and say, okay, you ready? And you're like, all right, how many pages do you have? I'll go, since we last read, looks like about 8 pages. And you're like, what? You just we're doing like 1 or 2 pages at a time before. Yeah, it just broke open.
And then just the weirdness about time, because it feels like it hasn't been that long, but then it feels like it's been happening forever. You know, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was also typing up the last episode, and one of the last episodes where you talked about the song. You know, it's like a song that gets written, a hit song that gets written or whatever. Yeah. And it reminded me just now when you were saying that, I mean, you hear about artists and stuff like that where they get, all of a sudden, a whole song comes to them, you know. And so it's similar kind of energies, I think. It's like the whole thing is flooding in and coming to you in that flow.
But
it's really amazing.
Okay.
But the principles are so complex in this.
Right.
Yeah.
And that might be, I mean, a song, it might be the lyrics and the music and everything. And I don't mean to downplay that, but I'm on page 399. Now, granted, there's 2 pages of these for every one type page. So we're probably right around 200
pages. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 200 type pages. And it's a mixture of, you know, like the narrative parts that we were talking about, and the dialogue parts, and poems, and the topics in all 3 flow right together. It's like it just drops in place. Yeah. You know. And
it's not all monolithic. It's different styles and different play. And I'm like, I didn't plan this.
Yeah, he'll come out and say, well, all it came were poems this sitting, you know. It's like, and then the next section ties back to the poem, and the poem ties, I mean, it's just amazing.
It's like the poem comes in right when it's supposed to. And I had no plan to do it.
It's so fun. Yeah. Fun to watch you and experience it from an observation.
Well, and it's also kind of funny because you and I, Gina, being outside of that, we're kind of living life, which is relatable to what's going on as well with the story. So it's all.
Yeah, and in one of the last episodes, you talk about, everybody's doing it their own way. Some are
Yeah.
out there experiencing it, and some are writing it, and some are living it other ways. And we all have our own journey with it, but it is amazing. So it's like the content, even we've seen other authors or videos or whatever, will have pieces and parts, like certain words they'll have that are common to what's flowing through. After we record it, we'll go find it. And it's like, so we're all tapping into the same well, we're just pulling from it with different, bucket, a spatula, a spoon, a teaspoon, or however we want to do it. Tim has a hose of its constant flow.
Mine's a fire hose at the moment, which I'm good with, but it does.
Yeah.
There are days where I come out and I'm just, wow, like.
Do you drink much orange juice?
Mm-mm. No, he doesn't drink.
I drink water.
Yeah.
Just because orange juice is really good for when you are channeling any kind of information. It helps you to replenish a little bit. I drink this one. It's got turmeric in it.
Oh yeah. We put turmeric in our protein shakes.
Yeah, we put turmeric in our protein shakes, and magnesium and potassium and all that stuff. But I drink water, filtered, double filtered, triple whatever, water with baking soda and a very, very small drop of spearmint. Yeah. And that works for me.
And occasionally you have a cup of tea.
And I might have vanilla or licorice or something like that, which I don't do caffeine. So I don't do any sugar. I don't do any caffeine. So, we've been talking about it. I'm not a small guy. I'm 6'1", but if you saw what I ate, you would say there is no way that can support someone.
Right. And calorie wise.
Because I have roughly 4 protein shakes a day. This is plant-based protein. I have 4 of those a day, and I have roughly 4 or 5 dates. That's it. I don't eat anything else. I don't drink anything else. I may have 1 cup of tea a day, and that's it. Yep. It's not enough calories. We already looked at the calories. It's not enough calories. But yet I've been doing it it's over a month.
Oh yeah. That. A couple months at least. So, and before that,
when did you start? When the information started flowing through you, when does the diet correlate with that at all?
I think I started
before that.
Yeah, before that.
I started before that, and then that started happening.
Yeah, but he hasn't had sugar or caffeine in probably a year and a half or 2 years. So, but the amount, everything else, because you were doing grapes and plums and stuff like that before he shifted this last time.
But those started bothering my stomach, so I got rid of the fruit until I was down to what I'm. But I'll tell you what, ever since I got rid of the caffeine and the sugar, that's when all this started really, really opening up.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I have anything in the way, just my own crap that seems a whole lot clearer now, and I can go through it virtually.
Yeah.
I just read books and imagine myself in those roles, like I've talked about, and it makes me see myself outside myself and imagining I'm going through these different storylines and picturing it, and then I see what I think I would do, and then I catch myself and go, yeah, I would probably do that, and I'm like, and I don't like that I would do that, and so it makes me start to think about that, and then I see myself being in another role, reading another book and whatnot, and then I noticed that behavior starting to change because I didn't like it, and I was actually there, because I really dive into when I read books. I really dive in, and it's almost like I'm in the story.
Yeah, your imagination.
Because she asked me, how do you read so fast? Because I can go through 100 pages in one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, how do you do that? I go, it just flows into me. I just start, and I'm there. It's like me and the words meet up into like a virtual world, and I'm just there.
I'm like that with reading too. Like I just absorb it very quickly, and it's like I'm lost. I used to get in trouble in school when I was like, I would get lost in a book in school and then get in trouble by the teacher because I was sneaking it or something, but I wouldn't realize that she'd moved on or something and get caught reading the book.
Yeah.
I've always been like that. And then my daughter, Elizabeth, my oldest, she's the type who can't do a story in her head. So that just blew my mind trying to help teach her when she was in school. Cause I'm like, what? I live in my head, the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes me a while to read a book because my thoughts go. I start to analyze it and go down the path here, versus.
But that's where I started. Yeah. Way back when, that's the way I was, and my OCD and all this. I had to start moving some furniture around inside my head to make it flow better, and eventually, because I started. It took me a long time, but I started reading some books I really enjoyed, and I'm like, I want to read more of these, and I know I can read them faster. So I started rearranging the deck chairs, and before long, it really, I mean, I think it was like, when I read a really good book like Frank Herbert or Orson Scott Card, that's when it really, pulls me in, is when it's a really well-written book. That means the narration is good and the dialogue is realistic and pulls you in. It feels like it's conversation that would happen in that setting. Those are the ones that before I know it, I've read 300 pages in a day, and it's kind of like, and I even tell her, I need to slow down. I'm going to try to slow it down so I don't go through the book so fast. But you know what?
It's sad though when you're loving a book and then it's over. It's like a part of me's done, and it makes me sad.
I went through all that, and then going through and trying to find books that had at least 5 books in the series, and saying I wouldn't go any less than that because it goes so fast. But I mean, since I've been writing this.
You haven't read anything, hardly.
One setting of one day, I went in to try to read for about an hour, and it just wasn't clicking for me. And I went back to writing.
Yeah.
And so I don't. Since I've been writing that, I don't read. Nope. It's all been filled writing. Yeah.
Very cool.
I think all of us have this. You may not be this style, and maybe it's not writing it, maybe it's painting, maybe it's, but all of us have it. You just have to let yourself intend it. Somehow throughout your life, you've gotten signs that you're really good at something. I now that I look back, yes, I had a way to be very clear in my writing, but I didn't write anything like this at all. I wrote tech manuals and stuff like that, and people would say your tech manuals are pretty clear. When I'm done with them, I feel like I know what you're, and when I go through your samples and your examples, I can follow right along, and it's very clear and there's no ambiguity. And I think I had the signs all along, but it wasn't until now, just recently, I started targeting it.
Excellent.
Hey, hang on, honey.
Your time is up.
Earlier today, I was channeling Dr. Seuss, and it was I am me and you are you. I think my own thoughts and I do my own do's.
There you go.
But I might change it. I think my own thinks and I do my own do's.
Yeah.
That sounds more Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try that with the kids. Just you can only speak in rhymes.
Yeah. That's a good one. Well, sometimes we do where we have like, I don't know what happens, but we all just start singing our words and we're like, la, la, la. And it's like musical theater in the house. And we're just talking about just regular stuff, but we're singing it. Even Chris, all of us.
Why not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
We've got plenty of time on our hands. You don't need to. Oh, I got to hurry up and I got to be in the living room by 5.
I know. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're all exploring.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right, we'll let you
Are we
go.
complete?
All right.
All
Bye.
right.